Hello, everyone. Hope you are all doing very well. Today is going to be different for me because today I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my book, Life's Dark Corners. So it's a collection of 5 short stories, all of them crime related. The story we'll be diving into today is called Shallow Seeds. It tells the story of a young man named Calvin who has spent many years on the street as a criminal, scraping by, hasn't really made much of himself. He finally finds his own little niche in crime, um, starts to elevate his position, only for disastrous consequences to ensue. So, without further ado, I'm going to start reading, and we'll, of course, start with Chapter 1. Calvin downed the bitter liquid courage. He knew that he shouldn't be drinking on the job, but when was he ever one to follow the rules? And since when did he ever have a job? Of course, that didn't stop him from claiming a number of professional titles like petty thief, two-bit hustler, occasional pot dealer, and all-around lowlife. Calvin knew that he didn't have what it takes to earn a spot in the big time when it came to crime, which was fine. He'd avoided prison so far, not counting a few stints in county. The only thing that bothered him was being constantly broke. Calvin was a career criminal by his own admission, but he wasn't a particularly good one, and it was starting to affect his self-confidence. That was why he needed a drink before he robbed the very bar he was sitting in. He looked over at his partner Ralph, who was pretending to mess with the old jukebox in the corner of the dilapidated establishment. Ralph was the mastermind of this heist, and Calvin was just waiting for his signal. Sure enough, his fat partner turned and gave him a nod, but the squinting of his eyes and serious demeanor almost made Calvin laugh despite himself. Ralph was a doofus, trying to make a name for himself as a serious strong-arm robber. There was nothing intimidating about him except the revolver he carried in his pocket, and his idea to rob this shithole was a joke. How much money could the bartender/owner have in the register? The place was almost dead, and who still used cash nowadays? But Calvin was desperate. He'd blown through the money he made this month, and his rent was due. If he didn't pay by the end of the week, he was out on his ass. Plus, the monkey on his back was starting its usual repetitive pounding rhythm. And in the spirit of that desperation, he nodded his head affirmatively to his partner. At least they brought masks, though he doubted anyone would find his rather plain appearance complete with a slight paunch and short yet shaggy brown hair distinctive. He put the money down on a table for his drink and made his exit first. As he stepped out into the rainy night, he slunk to the alley to the right of the front entrance and waited for Ralph. A few moments later, Ralph emerged from the bar and met Calvin in the alley. "You ready for this?" Ralph asked, retrieving the .22 caliber pistol from his coat pocket. "As ready as I'll ever be, I guess," Calvin muttered. Ralph smiled and patted his pouting friend. "Come on, brother. After this, we'll get a drink at a real bar, not this dump." "Let's just see how much we make from this lick, okay?" "Whatever." The partners in crime donned their masks and returned to the entrance of the bar. Then Calvin opened the door wide and Ralph rushed in first. As soon as he was inside, he let off 3 rounds into the ceiling. "Everyone on the fucking floor," he yelled. "This is a fucking robbery." The only people still in the bar were a couple of barflies and Mitch, the elderly bartender. Both of the middle-aged women immediately dropped to the floor. Only Mitch still stood. "Get the hell out of here," he screamed at Ralph, like Ralph was merely causing a ruckus. Calvin ran behind the bar and put his revolver under Mitch's chin. "Soon as we get in the register," he snarled, "faster you move, the faster we leave." The feeling of the cold steel under Mitch's chin changed his attitude. Even if they didn't mean to kill him, there was always a possibility they had twitchy trigger fingers. He eased his chin away from the barrel and moved toward the register. It took him a second, because his hands were visibly shaking, but he finally managed to get it open. Calvin shoved him out of the way and helped him to the contents. "Oh, fuck," Ralph groaned. "Look." "What?" Calvin asked, clearly irritated. Then he followed Ralph's sight to his right and saw Mitch breathing heavily and clutching his chest. Without saying a word, he toppled over on his back. Now his face was turning beet red. His mouth attempted to make words. Calvin dropped the money on the table and bent down to try to hear him. He put his ear to Mitch's mouth and could barely hear Mitch whisper, "Bill's pocket." "Hey, fuck that old man," Ralph exclaimed. "That's what he gets for being an asshole. Let's get the money and get out of here." Calvin ignored Ralph's callousness and the irony of him calling Mitch the asshole. He dug into Mitch's pockets and found a small bottle of pills. He unscrewed the child's safety top and forcefully shoved one of the tablets into the old bartender's mouth. Mitch managed to swallow it, and his grip on his chest relaxed slightly, his breathing slowly returning back to normal. "Thank you," Mitch gasped. All right, hero, Ralph muttered sarcastically. You saved him. Now let's grab the cash and get out of here. This time, Calvin was inclined to agree, so he grabbed the cash from the counter and made his way from around the bar. Just as they were on their way out, Ralph paused and looked at the two women. I bet they have a few bucks still, he commented. Come on, man, Calvin complained. We got what we want. Not everything. Ralph casually strolled over to the whimpering ladies and waved his gun at them. Let's see those phones and wallets. Boom! Ralph crumpled to the ground, and a pool of blood began pouring out of his head. Calvin looked over at the bar and saw Mitch, who was using one arm to hold the counter and support himself, while his other hand held a revolver like Calvin's, but with a longer barrel. The startled would-be robber froze in shock. Ralph really wasn't much of a friend, but he didn't want to see his partner go out like that. Then he realized his own immediate danger. Mitch turned him, but instead of aiming and squeezing the trigger, he put the gun down on the counter. Get the fuck out, he said. Calvin bolted out of the bar and into the night. That completes Chapter 1. If you're interested, Life's Dark Corners is available on Amazon for paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited. So for you crime thriller lovers out there, please check it out. You can also follow me on jamesmichaelsbooks.com. My personal email is on there if you'd like to contact me directly, as well as my email subscriptions on there as well, so you can stay up to date on further books I have going on, book deals, book signings, things of that nature. So, thank you for tuning in. Bye.